What is up, everybody? And today we're going to be doing a conference finals preview between the Clippers and the Suns. Game one has already been played, so we're a bit late to it, but we still have some really cool takes on this very interesting series. It's marred by beating some very good teams. The Suns beat some very competent teams. The Clippers beat the number one seed and a person who was averaging 36, 9, and 9. So they've been through controversy. They've had their share of injuries, and now they're facing each other. Who will come up on top? Well, here's our takes and here's our predictions.
I'm going to start by talking about something that has been very, very prevalent in both the West and the East, and that has been absences of stars. So the first one obviously is Kawhi Leonard. He suffered an ACL injury in Game 4 of the conference semifinals, and there's not really any timetable for his return, which basically means that he's probably not going to play at all this series. He didn't travel with the team to Phoenix, so he definitely won't be playing game 2, and they probably won't be playing anything through game 7 either. So this is going to be a major blow to the Clippers, but the Suns also have an absence, and that is Chris Paul, who contracted the virus and has been sitting out due to safety protocols. And it's kind of unclear when he'll come back because we're not sure about whether he's vaccinated or not, and how strict the protocols are going to be for him. But we expect him to be back sometime during the series, unlike Kawhi. So obviously, the Kawhi absence is much more significant in this series, in my opinion, because he is the Clippers' first option. But there's still some hope for the Clippers because playoff P has been playoff P basically, and he's been playing well without Kawhi. But I think that they do need other players besides just Paul George to step up in the absence of Kawhi this series. But the absence of CP3 didn't affect the Suns too much in this first game because Devin Booker was able to step up in that kind of point guard facilitator role. And he actually recorded his first ever triple double in his first ever conference finals appearance, which is it's a great game to it to get that achievement in. So it'll be interesting to see how both of these absences affect the series, but I think that overall the Suns have the advantage.
And I'm going to talk about Paul George. I think, or playoff P. I think Andy already elaborated a little bit on him, but I'll just go into some more depth. So Kawhi is obviously out, but the Clippers need some players to step up, and I think Paul George is one of those key players. He actually played quite well without Kawhi Leonard, and even with Kawhi Leonard, he was also playing well. But I guess now he's playing even better. So he's really shown that he can be a threat all around the court. He can shoot 40% from the three. He can make some pretty tough jump shots, and he has the height to play in the paint. And he's also been playing significant minutes. He's been playing 39 minutes in the Jazz series. He had 29 points per game, and 10 rebounds per game, and five assists per game, which is all really impressive. And I think one other important thing was how he's been a key leader for the Clippers without Kawhi. This may not be direct, but I feel like he had some part in making some other players step up, like Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson. So I think that I would call it like the Paul George effect. When Paul George was playing well, these other players started to also play well. But then specifically with the Suns, I think Mikal Bridges struggled to defend Paul George in game one. I would say Paul George wasn't the most efficient in general from the field. He was shooting around 38%, but from the three, he shot really well. So I think the Suns definitely struggled to defend his 3-point shot. And also, if you look at Paul George's defense, I think he played decent defense in this game. He was at the front and the back of their defensive formation, so I think he played a lot of versatile roles. But I think the Clippers definitely struggled to guard Devin Booker. Marcus Morris he was injured in the first half, and he still couldn't really guard him. And Reggie Jackson in the second half also couldn't guard Devin Booker. So I think Paul George may actually be placed on Devin Booker. So I think that's another thing to look out for. But Paul George will definitely be a key factor in the series.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but for me, no matter what Paul George does in the series, as long as it's not absolutely atrocious, I think he has at least shut the media up a little bit about the pandemic piece stuff, and I'm happy for him on that front. I think that I guess he was a media darling when he was facing the bad boy Heat teams when he was on that Indiana Pacers time. And I think that if he does well this series, if he does well this playoffs, I think he might get back to that level of appreciation. But I'm here to talk about role players and their effect in the series because it is massive. On the Clippers side, there are several role players who will need to step up and need to play extremely well. We already talked about players like Marcus Morris, but there also has to be players like Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson played amazing in the latter half of the Utah series and game one today. He had around 20 points in almost each of the games, the past 5 games. If he can keep this up, that'll be huge for the Clippers because the Clippers are a decent defensive team and they just need offense. And they're missing a lot of offense with Kawhi. If they can get some of that offense back from a player like Reggie Jackson, that would be amazing. And his role is he's playing some big time minutes and he's making it count. He's getting some clutch shots. He's making some he's making some contested shots and he's doing quite well. He's even efficient for 3-point line, which is a concern when he was in Detroit. So I think if you have a player like Reggie Jackson, if other players like Terrence Mann, who had an amazing Game 6 closeout versus the Jazz, if there could be another Terrence Mann game, I know that wasn't there in Game 1, but if there could be at least one game where Terrence Mann goes off for 25, 30 points again, that probably can be chalked up to a win in the Clippers books. And if that can happen, I think, along with the facilitation from other key role players like Rajon Rondo and Nicholas Batum and several others, I think Clippers can do quite well. But also on the other side, you have a team full of many role players. You have the Phoenix Suns. You have players outside of Devin Booker who need to step up in the absence of Chris Paul. So you have players like Cameron Payne, who was decent today but was in foul trouble, so Devin Booker took a little bit of that point guard role. You have players like Mikal Bridges, who needs to be better on defense. That is his calling card and needs to be efficient from 3, which I think he was doing quite well offensively today and throughout the playoffs, to be honest. And I think it's been really nice to see his development. And the biggest factor, X factor, I think, is DeAndre Ayton. The Clippers like to play small, and it worked for them against Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert was rendered relatively useless. Even though Nicholas Batum wasn't the best offensively, having 5 guys who can be small, who can play fast, definitely made Rudy Gobert struggle, even though he was the defensive player of the year and is now a 3-time defensive player of the year. DeAndre Ayton is a bit more mobile than Rudy Gobert and a bit younger and a bit more athletic. So we'll see how that matchup really works out. The thing is, they'll need to defend him too. Rudy Gobert is mostly a defensive-minded center, so he wasn't really putting up 20 and 15 on them a game. And in this first game, DeAndre Ayton had a really good game. So if he's able to have this consistently, I think the Suns will cakewalk easily. So now we go to the predictions. We each have our own predictions based on the several factors which are hampering these teams' abilities or leading them to several successes. The role of role players, the missing in action of Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, and the performances of players like Paul George are all contributing factors. But to me, it seems quite simple. We already saw what the Suns are able to do in game 1. And I think that they'll be able to do it quite consistently furthermore. And I think that the Suns will win in 5 games. I think that there's no way that Reggie Jackson keeps this up. I don't think that Paul George is going to be averaging 35 points a game on good shooting. And I think that's what he will need if the Clippers are even to try to sniff a chance at winning. And I think Chris Paul's inevitable return will just seal the deal for the Suns. So I think the Suns will win in 5.
Yeah, I also agree. I think that the Clippers really don't have much of a chance just because Kawhi, their best player, is out. But they do have great role players, as you mentioned, like Terrence Mann and like Reggie Jackson. So I do think that because they're kind of on and off players who have the ability to have just crazy good games, as we saw at the end of the Jazz series, they'll be able to win 2 games, in my opinion. So I have the Suns winning in 6.
Like both of you, I also have the Suns winning, but I agree a little bit more with Andy. I think while the Suns definitely do have the advantage, I think the Clippers will put up a good fight. Even in this game, it was tied at one point. It was like 99 all with 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and I could easily see the Clippers being the team to take the lead. But that being said, I still think the Suns are better, so I have them winning in 6.
But that wraps it up for this preview of the Suns versus Clippers series. If you liked it, remember to like. Otherwise, let us know why you didn't like it in the comments below. But this is the Benchwarmers signing out. See ya.